Good afternoon, team. This is what I want you to imagine. Imagine only having washing up liquid in your house that you needed to use for your washing, for your clothes washing, to wash your children, to wash their hair, to wash your hair. I know for most of you that follow us and involved with both Pink's Boutique and Proverb as a brand, we have such a strong cohort of therapists, spa owners, and just straight up beauty skincare lovers. And in truth, as a group for us, it's probably even more unimaginable than it is for most people. We bathe in product all day long and essentially are probably surrounded by some very expensive products as well. And this afternoon, or whenever you're watching this, I would love you to share it with anyone else in our industry or anyone that you think can help, because I'm going to be joined by Lizzy Hall, founder of the Hygiene Bank, to talk about UK hygiene poverty. And particularly, I think right now, as our industry, we've had the year of being locked down, and so many of us have got brands or buildings full of product that's short dated, coming towards the end of its life. And instead of being miserable about that and wittering about the cash we've lost, I want us to see if we can do something really, really positive about it and make some good out of what we have all just endured. I'm Kirsty, founder of Pink's Boutique and Proverb, and this is the brutal truth. And I will bring in Lizzy.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, such a pleasure. So as I said, you founded the Hygiene Bank. We met and came across each other because last year when lockdown occurred, as Proverb, our brand, we started to donate hand sanitizer. So we were doing an option where for every hand sanitizer, and we still do, for every hand sanitizer we sell, we give one to you guys for the Hygiene Bank. But tell us, I've heard all the amazing stories, but tell us how it all happened and how you came to create it.
Well, I didn't intend to set up a charity. I didn't intend to set up a national charity. Back in the summer, August of 2018, I was watching a British film by director-producer Ken Loach called I, Daniel Blake. It's a British film which kind of shines a spotlight really on those in the UK, I would say, that are sort of falling through the gaps. And in this film, you see a single mum of two go to a food bank. And now I knew of food banks, I knew about food poverty. It was in the press, it's been in the press, I knew about it. Anyway, she goes to this food bank and she asks for period products. And their response is, oh, we don't really get those sorts of things here. Anyway, later on in the film, she's caught shoplifting. And when they empty her bag, she's basically got some period pads, some deodorant, and a Bic razor. And it really kind of got me thinking that if you can't afford food, then you probably can't afford some of these other basics. And I didn't know whether this was, a bit of sensationalism for the film. So I went down to my local food bank. I live in Sevenoaks in Kent. And they corroborated this, that actually they get donations of food, but they often don't get donations of what we would consider the hygiene essentials, let alone some of the more beautifying products. Let's just call them the essentials. Your toothpaste, your loo roll, your washing liquid, your shower gel, your shampoos, your deodorant, your period products, your shaving products. So I was really moved by this. The film really got to me. So I sent a WhatsApp to friends and family just saying, listen, there's a real shortage of toiletries. People are going without. I'm going to collect some products and take them down to the food bank. If you've got anything that you want to donate, drop it off to me. You've probably all been on holiday and you've probably all collected all those little hotel minis and brought them back with you that are living in the back of your cupboard.
My mother.
Drop them off to me and I'll take them down. And the response, Kirsty, was just overwhelming. I mean, not only was I getting donations from friends and family, which I'd kind of expect because they were supporting an initiative of mine, but I was getting donations from people I didn't know. And sort of, I got to the point where I realized that I'd really cottoned onto something, but what I needed to do was just find a way to facilitate it and make it easier for people. without having to necessarily contact me directly and drop something at my house. So I went on to sort of freelogos.com. I have evolved a sort of a marketing PR background. So I suppose I understood brand a little bit. I created a logo. I designed a poster. I went to a couple of retailers and the Sevenoaks Leisure Centre and said, if I put up a poster and a box, can people drop stuff off? And they said yes. So I then created an Instagram account. I was by no means a social media savvy. I kind of had a very old, defunct, out of date Facebook page. But I sort of taught myself Instagram, created an Instagram account, and really through the power of social media, it grew. And so I started out very locally. And unlike a food bank that gives products directly to individuals, I kept with the model that I created, whereby I gave products to frontline organizations that already existed. So I was giving product to things like the food bank, the Women's Refuge, schools, social services. And then through Instagram, really, what was happening was people were coming to me saying, we need this where I live. How can I set this up? So I created then a toolkit, and we began replicating. I sort of harnessing this sort of social movement, and we were gathering volunteers who were replicating what I was doing in my area of Kent in other areas. And sort of 3 years on, we are a nationally registered, recognised charity. We've got projects in sort of 152 locations, the length and breadth of the UK. We're supporting around 1,500 community partners. And what we call community partners are all those frontline organisations within your community. So they are the food bank, the Women's Refuge, local schools, job seekers. It could be asylum and refugee. It could be prisoner rehab, or whatever organisation is working within the local community, supporting people that are struggling. We give products to those people, and we've distributed over nearly 600,000 kilograms of products since we started. And we've supported thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And we know from research that long before people will even go to a food bank, and we hear so much about food banks, but long before people will even go to food bank, they will have stopped buying these essentials. So the example you gave earlier, we hear all the time, families washing, their skin, their children, their hair, their clothes, and the same 49p washing up liquid that they use their dishes, that they use to wash their dishes. The first time I took, before the Hygiene Bank really became what it is now, and I took a load of products down to my local food bank, I remember a mum of two walking in with two young children who were in school uniform, and I reckon they were probably reception, maybe year one, and she saw this array of essentials, basically toiletries you'd find in your bathroom. And she sort of spoke to the volunteers and she said, can I take some of this? And they said, yes, absolutely. We're now getting some of this stuff. She turned to her two children and said, you can have a toothbrush each. And their excitement was ridiculous. We hear stories all the time.
Whereas for the rest of us, it just literally makes you well up.
Whereas I look at my children and I've got, let alone have their own bathroom, but there's toothbrushes upstairs and then downstairs loo, so they can do them on the way out to school if they've forgotten upstairs. It's just, if I looked around at my bathroom, and the essentials that I just took for granted. And then when you start to sort of delve deeper and you start to understand the implications of not having these products, which our core belief is these are not luxury items. It leads to shame, embarrassment, social exclusion and isolation, because you're too embarrassed to go out. You're too embarrassed to interact. I mean, could you go to work? Could you meet people socially if your hair was dirty and you had body odor and possibly loo roll stuff down your pants because you haven't got period products?
Yeah.
You know, can your children participate in school if they smell and their uniform's dirty, let alone PE kit or football kit or rugby kit that you need to wash?
Especially right now. I mean, we're getting mandates from school all the time saying clothes must be completely clean every day. Like they're fully washed because of COVID. Like if you don't have washing powder, and I think the first time I ever spoke to you guys and had me in tears on the phone, which is why we got very passionate about Hygiene Bank. Amy was telling me a story about a school mum who again had kind of reception year child who went to pick them up, and the teacher said, I need to speak to you. Like, he's really clearly got nits. I can visibly see the nits in his head. You have to go home. I need you to comb through with conditioner, and I need you to get them out before he's allowed back in this classroom tomorrow. Yeah. And he arrived back, he's 6 years old, arrived back the next day with a completely shaven head. Yeah. Because she didn't have conditioner and she didn't have a comb.
£3.95. You don't have the £3.95 or the, you know, thereabouts, because that's the cost of, if you're struggling financially, and this is what hygiene poverty is. Hygiene poverty is not having all those essentials that I'm talking about, because you're having to work out how to spend your resources. Whether do you spend it on housing? Do you spend it on your utilities? Do you put, you know, do you pay your bills? Do you spend it on food, or do you spend it on these hygiene essentials? And we know from research that those are the first to go. But and actually pre-COVID, we used to say, because it wasn't life or death. So that's why people made that choice.
Yeah.
And actually what COVID has shown is that hygiene is really important. And so that's where you came in, and being able now to offer things like the hand sanitizer, because not only now are people being asked to, or people needing to sort of the basics that we can think of, they're now needing some PPE and face masks, they're needing hand sanitizer, that it's, you know, that list has grown.
Yeah. And we can see from our side, obviously, we will message you and say, right, we've got this many gallons or we've got this many bottles. Where should it go? And as you were saying, it is going to projects. So we'll be given an address, very predominantly schools, which again, the followers we have and the people that are involved within Pink's Boutique and Proverb are roughly our ages. And let's face it, my industry is very heavily female dominated.
Yeah.
And very heavily mother dominated. So yeah. As you're writing out tags to head into schools, and then we've had kind of the heads of schools speak to us afterwards and explain that they are literally, they know who their children are in the buildings that are at risk, that are getting free school lunches, etc. And they're now giving them the sanitizer as well to literally take home, because they know they won't have soaps or sanitizers in their building. And it doesn't matter how many times I do it, it makes me want to cry every time.
Well, you know what? Pre-COVID, pre the pandemic, the national statistic were 9 in a class of 30 children. 9 children in a class of 30 were being brought up in poverty, and what that meant. And since the pandemic, we know that's grown. You know, people that were being furloughed, that were just about, you know, on that precipice of managing, have now been tipped over into struggling, into crisis.
Have you found the demand and the need for donations is vastly increased because of COVID?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I said before, I think we're supporting nationally, we're supporting about 1,500 community partners, which are these frontline organisations working to support their local communities. And we've got a waiting list of 200 community partners that we can only give out if we've got products. You know, we can't take on more than we can handle. And I don't mean handle that in a logistics sense, but if we don't have the product, we can't give it.
And in terms of helping, what can we all do? From kind of the basics upwards. So I know you have across the country about 798 drop-off points. So now we're allowed outside, we could potentially go. And if you go to the hygienebank.com, the website, you can literally put in your postcode and find a drop-off site. But presumably, if there are not drop-off sites in your area, you need more.
We do. So let's even just take it back a step, because we can have different levels of entry of getting involved. So hygiene poverty, up till quite recently, is relatively unknown. Everybody knows about food poverty, but hygiene poverty sits side by side with it. And until you tell people and they have that aha moment, you don't think about it. I hadn't thought about it. I didn't clock it until I watched that film. And then what was she stealing? She was buying her food for the kids. And so what she was stealing were period pads, Bic razors, because let's face it, as a woman in this country, culturally, we're derided for walking around with hairy armpits or long-haired legs, aren't we? And if you've got body odor, you're ostracized. Let's just talk about the basics before we even get onto the nice moisturizers or makeup, which we do a lot of makeup. We don't see that as that is an essential for a lot of people, how they are able to present themselves, what gives them the confidence. So at the very start, we want to raise awareness that this exists.
So literally having the conversation.
Having a conversation. This doesn't exist in some faraway country, over there. This doesn't even exist sort of somewhere where, coal mines have closed down. This exists everywhere. Pretty much every town has a food bank and a women's refuge.
Yep.
And, schools and, organizations that are working to support people that are currently struggling and have been struggling. So this isn't something that's happening over there. So first off, it's raising awareness, to have the conversation, to try and break the stigma, to try and break the shame. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, like what we do. Start spreading. We've got to normalize the conversation. If you are lucky enough to be able to afford to donate products sometimes, when you go shopping and there's a 3 for 2, take that third item and maybe donate it. As you said, we've got about 700 drop-off points throughout the country. And if you go onto the website, and put in your postcode, you'll find your nearest drop-off boxes to you. If there aren't any drop-off boxes near you, we also have wish lists with various wish list providers from Amazon to they were called eShow, and they've just changed the name and it's gone. But again, on the website, you can see, so you could buy something online and get it sent directly somewhere. If there isn't a project in your area, so the way we operate, so we were talking about projects earlier. So a project is a group of volunteers that basically collect products and then redistribute it back into their community. So we're very much a give local, help local ethos. So you as somebody donating a product, that product, you as a brand working is slightly differently. But if you're donating as an individual or as a small business, then that product will probably get redistributed pretty much within a 5-mile radius. So if you're donating it locally, then you are helping your own local community, not something over there. So these are run by volunteers. If there isn't a project in your area, would you consider setting one up?
Yeah, be the volunteer.
If there is a project in your area already, would you consider hosting a drop-off box so that your clients could possibly drop stuff off when they come to visit you, if you're a therapist?
And I just think as a salon, as a hair salon, as a beauty salon, it's just so logical to what we do. I mean, we have so much product around, and explaining it to someone in that setting is going to be the most logical conversation there could be. So yeah, I would love to see that idea of kind of more salons and spas and hairdressers having a beautiful basket or box where they can drop bottles into.
And it's also a conversation starter. If there's something there displayed, that people go, oh, what's that for? And you can then start to have a conversation. Well, it's the Hygiene Bank and it's about hygiene poverty. And gosh, do you realize some people don't have? And we've got all the stats and everything on our website for anybody that wanted to sort of know more and a bit more depth. So that's a way of getting involved. We've got this year in July, from the 5th to the 11th of July, we've got our second National Hygiene Week, where there's activities across the board, from fundraising through to panel discussions, exercises and downloadable schools materials. So, you know, get involved in National Hygiene Week, follow us, fundraise for us. There's so much we can, there's so much that needs to happen. We're very much a voluntary organisation. You know, we've only got 6 people in head office that manage all of the operations, all of those, all the volunteers, all the projects, all the community partners. Money.
The other thing that I mentioned at the beginning as well, is obviously for our industry right now, it's such a weird point to have been switched off for a year, but your product was still there and sitting there. So I do know it's like within our own warehouse, we've just found we've got kind of 5 SKUs that are short dated. I was speaking to another brand earlier and they were like, actually, it's happened in our warehouse. It must be something that's happened all over the place. And I know from salon owners as well. So I do think what I would love us to do as the beauty industry is, I'm really passionate now. I'm going to go after this and try and group some brands and salons together to work out where that product is and head it to you. And I did ask you, it's not the essentials. Does the luxury product help? Does the moisturizer and the serum help?
Absolutely. I can't tell you. So if you can't afford the basics, and you're struggling with the basics, we hear time and time again how branded products or products that are possibly slightly on the more less essential but nice to have, right through to the really nice to have, do so much for someone's feel good factor and self-esteem. And we hear this a lot. So, and I'm not maligning anybody that donates an own brand product. Hugely, we are, and recipients are hugely grateful. But we hear all the time, when you don't have a lot of money, you know, getting an own brand shampoo is nice, it's great, you need it. But suddenly getting a branded something is that extra bit. And actually, there's so much loss of confidence, loss of dignity, loss of self-esteem and self-worth that comes with not being able to provide for yourself, let alone provide for your children. The little things that can just bolster that, making you feel good about yourself, does so much more than actually the physicality of the product itself.
Yeah. And let's face it, if there is enough money to buy some toothpaste for everyone versus a moisturizer for your own face, we all know what all mums are going to do. So it will always be her that doesn't have anything in that sense.
Absolutely. I mean, we had a story the other day, you know, a young mum, and she was trying to provide, again, so when we talk about hygiene poverty, it's mums scraping out the contents of a dirty nappy and reapplying it because they haven't got enough nappies for the day. They've got to make them last. And then you think of nappy rash, and you think of a distressed baby, and you think of the knock-on effect of a distressed baby on a mother, the distress, you know, the knock-on effects of hygiene poverty is vast. And so actually we had this story of a mum, because she is struggling to pull together nappies for her children, for her baby rather, that sort of thing. And she was trying to go for a job interview. So she dipped into one of the local boot stores to use their tester makeup, to put makeup on. So she felt a bit better about herself and looked a bit more presentable. Because if you've got someone coming for a job, someone's looking a bit daggy and someone's looking kind of well groomed, you're probably more naturally drawn to the one that's slightly more groomed. And that really made us think, you know, that these aren't even makeup. It's not a luxury item. You know, it's how we want to present ourselves and what gives us the confidence to interact and be a part of and contribute to society. And that's what hygiene poverty does. It is a barrier to being a part of and being able to contribute to society to your fullest potential.
Yeah. And I think what's mind-blowing, and I think when I met you guys, is like you say, how prevalent it is in this country, close to your own house.
Absolutely. And it's not something that you would necessarily recognize or know, because what happens is people, you know, women that can't afford period products, for example, will just stay housebound rather than possibly risk going out with loo rolls stuck down their pants and then, you know, and then all catastrophes happening. You know, where we hear a lot, we work with a lot of women's refuges and we give a lot of product to women's refuge. And, you know, you hear stories of that actually withdrawal of a lot of these products is used as a form of coercive control very often. So by being able to give products to outreach programs for women to be able to sneak in into their home, gives them a little bit of self-worth, and maybe will give them a little bit more confidence to deal with what they're dealing with. You know, there's so many stories of children missing school and missing out on sport because they don't have the clean uniform, or they don't have the clean PE kit, or they don't have the clean football kit.
Meanwhile, most of us are moaning about the fact that we've just put the washing machine on for the 4th time today.
Yeah, we can't quite wrap your head around the fact that this is a reality. But what we're saying is, it is, and it's happening in this country, and it's happening in your hometown, very, very probably. If you've got a food bank where you live, then absolutely this is happening.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd been looking at food banks recently, and we are very lucky. We live in the countryside in what is a very, very affluent area of Derbyshire. And we've got food banks in all of our local supermarkets, despite the house prices that are around here. But it's been amazing. So just to recap for everyone listening, this is Lizzy from Hygiene Bank. She's been telling us a story about how she by chance happened to make what is now an amazing national level, but yet grassroots community charity in the last 3 years. The donation level has been insane. The kind of amount you've donated in the last year is incredible. And we would love you to be involved, basically. So first up was talking about it, donating any individual bottles you can. You can go onto the Hygiene Bank website and have a look at where the donation points are. Lizzy, are the Boots boxes?
Boots, yeah. So we've got a very good collaboration with Boots, and there's Boots boxes now in, I think, over 250 stores. And you don't have to have bought the product from Boots to be able to donate it. You can have bought it from anywhere. What we do say though is product needs to be new and unused. Again, and in date. And in date. And there's 2 reasons for that, really. There's health and safety, but it's also about dignity. Would you give a friend a sort of a third of a bottle of shampoo as a gift? And when you're down, and we're talking about people that are struggling and in crisis, you know, there's what we're trying to do is these products, we see them just not only as a handout, but they're sort of a hand up, you know, that they're sort of an elevator, you know, they're hopefully going to help you sort of enable you to be part of society again.
And you know yourself, there is nothing nicer than just that day where you're like, right, I've got time, I'm going to have a full shower, I'm going to shave, I'm going to wash my hair. There's just something amazing as a human to come out feeling clean and well presented. And it is not a luxury, and it shouldn't be a luxury.
Absolutely. You know, when we've all been, so you've been a bit unwell and you've been in bed for a couple of days, and the first time you have a shower, I mean, it's sort of your shoulders literally, you rise up. And, you know, so it might just seem like a little small thing, but, you know, a bottle of deodorant for a teenager that doesn't have deodorant is transformative. And so what we say is you can't change the world, but really you can change the world for one person. Yeah.
So please go and have a look at the Hygiene Bank website. There's lots of different ways you can be involved and donate, but those particular of you that have got salons or spas, to have a look at your local areas and see if there isn't. And if you would love I would love you to think about maybe being one of those donation points if you can. And if you are in short dated product world, so it has to be in date, but it can be short dated, for those particularly that are salon spa brands or salons and spas, then let us know as well, because everything is useful and helpful. Thank you so much, Lizzy.
Thank you very much for having me. And, you know, it's only really through this allyship with brands like yourself that we can, get products to people, but also raise awareness that this exists, because until people know that it exists, we can't actually do anything about it.
And as you say, it's entirely talking. The reason I didn't know anything about it until I spoke to a friend of mine, Caro, who is wife of one of Luke's really best friends that I played rugby with. And then there we are.
Yeah.
So make sure you follow. It's at the Hygiene Bank on Instagram, because you guys are really prevalent on there as well. And message us if you have any questions. Let's do this. I think we can do some really beautiful things to try and help you.
Thank you.
Oh, pleasure. And if anyone has any questions, just let us know. If not, we will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.